So, welcome everyone to this week's edition of Impactful Teamwork. I'm your host, Julia Felton, and today I am delighted to be joined by another guest. And today I've got with me Stuart Webb, and Stuart is a master of transformation through his business, The Complete Approach. He's a speaker, an author, a podcaster. And what I really loved about Stuart when I connected with him is the way that he takes his expertise from his scientific background and applies them to business. And I take a lot of my expertise from out in nature and the horses and apply them to business. So I love connecting with other business leaders, coaches, and mentors that bring stuff from another field and bring it to make it more valuable to business. So, Stuart, welcome to the show. We are super happy to have you here.
Thank you, Julie. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah. So, Stuart, let's just kick off with just tell us then a little bit about the Scientific Business Value Builder. What a great title. How did you come across that? And to give us a little bit of context about how you bring science into business.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Yeah, when I was at school, and I definitely was one of those kids that knew what they wanted to do, was getting the right sort of grades and was pushed into a particular path at school. And I just loved my science. And I went and pursued a scientific career for a number of years, various universities around the world. And I enjoyed it. But whilst I was there, I was constantly looking at new ideas, new things that I wanted to get involved in. I was involved at one stage with one university where part of my job was to try and understand how the internet could help do what we were doing. And I started down this path. And someone eventually said to me, you have to make a decision. You have to decide, are you going to go off and do something with this and the internet ideas, or are you going to get back on and forge a path as a sort of a potential, what they call an investigator? And I realized that actually it was the business. It was applying some of these ideas to business problems that really interested me. So I left and I started a business. The business was moderately successful. It wasn't great. I didn't really know what I was doing. I'd had no business training. I was very definitely, very definitely entrepreneurial. And I genuinely believe, Julia, and you can probably relate to this, that all of that history of that 10 or 15 years of my expertise, I had to then throw out of the window because I was now doing entrepreneurial business stuff. And I'd seen on the television and on films that this was all about flying by the seat of your pants and doing things which were just wacky and wild. And I thought all of that other stuff I was doing was all about structure and doing things in a defined process way that you could repeat it. And you don't want to do any of that. So I threw all of that away. For the first couple of businesses I started were very chaotic because I had no idea that some of that past experience might actually apply to what I was doing. Anyway, come eventually somebody sitting me down, and we all need these mentors, and we all need these moments when people sit you and say, you are chaotic, aren't you? And this was a non-executive director that had been coming to one of the businesses that I, by this stage, joined a young management team, and I was one of the directors. I was one of 4 directors. And this non-executive was brought in by the company we were using to get some funding. And he said, you're chaotic, but you're a scientist, I see from your CV. So why are you not using all of that stuff, process, systems, testing? And I looked at him and went, but you don't do that when you're doing business. Don't be ridiculous. And so I thought, okay, as I left this half an hour with him, I thought, I'm going to give it a go. Perhaps it might be successful. So that's when I actually started to really apply a lot of the scientific principles. I have a hypothesis that you're going to test. I want to find out if this way of marketing to this set of clients is actually more successful than another way. So I was setting up what were, experiments. They were absolutely experiments from my past. And you know something, it started to actually work and the business started to grow and I was being successful. And so the words scientific value builder, because that's what happened. By using those scientific principles, I started to build real value into that business. So I suddenly realized that actually I had for several years been wandering off doing things and learning. But by the same process, I could have been much more successful by taking on so much of that experience I had as a scientist. And so effectively, I re-imported all of that knowledge, decided I would start to apply the same rigor, the same. A scientist is somebody who has a hypothesis and want to test it. And they don't just go off and change 15 chemicals at the same time. They change
Yeah.
one and see if whether or not that one makes a difference. So one step would be changed in a process, and one thing I would be testing in terms of, and eventually I started then to see that actually the structure that you need, particularly with teams, is absolutely critical to being successful.
Yeah, and it's so interesting you say that, because I was the same actually when I left the corporate world. I was like, great, no systems, no processes, happy days, right? And it's like I swung the pendulum too far the other
Yeah,
way. And
yeah.
I was a bit like a bit chaotic, doing everything what. And then I started to really realize that I think you can have, when I was in the corporate world, it was my life was a system. It was very defined and regimented. Get up at this time, get on the train, get into central London. And I think my view of systems and processes was very structured. And then the realization there's a hybrid between the two, where you can have systems, but they can be flexible systems, right? And then I love the acronym systems, save yourself some time, energy, and money
No, it's,
from the word
it,
system.
that is, you're absolutely right. The problem is that a lot of people think a system is something which is there to constrain, but actually
Yeah.
what it can do is a system, a process, whatever we are, however we want to describe it, it's there actually to support the people. Because
Mm.
if we decide that everything is up for somebody to decide how they want to do it, that actually leads to a set of chaotic situations that are very difficult to control. But if you look at a system as a scientist would, which would go, that's the bit that we're testing today, we control that bit. There are other bits which we're not interested in testing today, we can allow some flexibility around that. Then you can set things up so that people have the flexibility and have the right information in order to be able to make the right decision. So it's about the balance, isn't it? And a lot of the time we put in these systems in order to prevent the chaos, but we go too far. The guardrails get too firm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have a great system, the path system.
Yeah.
So explain to us a little bit about the path, because I loved it when I came across the acronym for path. And so perhaps you could just share with everyone what path stands for, and again, how this kind of came about. And then we can delve into that invaluable T then in path.
Yes,
That's really
sure. Okay. Path, as you've just said, path is, I recognize that with any business, you need to make sure that you do have an understanding of exactly what you're trying to do. So the path is, the first one of those is P, for purpose. The purpose behind why you're doing something is absolutely critical. So you need to understand, what's your purpose? Who is the customer that you serve? And how is it that you ensure that your solution truly meets their need? Not what they want, but what they need.
Yeah.
So you need to be very clear upon your purpose, and you need to be very clear upon what is their problem, what is their need, and how your solution meets their need. And once you've got that, I often say to people, it solves so many business selling problems, because so many people are trying to sell something and they see it as pushing the solution on. But if somebody's got a problem and they want a solution, and you've clearly defined that, when you have managed to get them to a situation where you say, we recognize this as the problem, and would you like some help to solve it? You've stopped selling. They are going to be asking. And that's where I come to with a lot of people who are starting a business and sometimes starting to scale, particularly smaller business owners. They will look at you and go, I don't like selling. And I go, stop selling then, start helping. P is all about understanding that helping. It's all about, how do you go about helping somebody to solve their problem? And then you offer the help. Now there's a monetary exchange and there's a consideration, what have you, in order to be able to do that. And often that is something people get very upset about. But that is about getting people to the stage where they say, I would like help, and you offer help. So P is purpose. The second is A. That's about action. And these are actions that are to do with, one, generating the leads. I'll come back to my process in a minute, but generating the leads, setting up a system, a process which continually ensures that you've got a funnel full of potential opportunities and leads, and that you are able to deliver the promise that your marketing, that your sales actually promises. So you have then a series of actions, a series of systems and processes which enable people to move from that, I know you, I like to get to know about this solution you've got to my problem, through to, I have been given the solution. It's about productizing your service so that it becomes something that's easily packageable and easily, once again, wrapped in a system that makes it easy to
Yeah.
deliver and consistent. So A is all about making sure that actions are delivering excellence, delivering consistency. Then we have the T, and the T is where we'll probably spend more of time than we have, and
Yeah.
that's team. And with the team, I talk to people about ensuring they have got what I call the 4 pillars, effectively, of excellent management. And I'll describe this in great detail, but it's the thing which actually was the secret to when I started to grow a very big team, and I had sort of 600 people at one stage reporting to me
Wow.
through various channels. And I needed to be able to put a process in place that I and my managers all followed in order to ensure that we all delivered excellence to each of the people that we worked with. So team is all about setting up that process, that system again, to deliver a working team that actually understands your vision, understands the purpose, sticks with the actions. And finally, that leads to H, which is harmony. And this is where you have got harmony with your family, because you no longer sit at the center of a business which you are increasingly unable to spend any time away from, and can increasingly you have stakeholders who are happy with the actions you're taking. So that leads to harmony in your life. So if you, I can spend a lot more time on the team and those pillars of excellent management, because that's where I think you'll probably resonate with a lot of what we're talking about.
Yeah. And just before you do, I love that, because obviously the P, purpose, and everything in business got to start with purpose, where we're going.
Yeah.
The A for action, because unless we take any action, folks, nothing happens. We can have the best ideas. But if we don't execute, nothing happens. And then I really like the H there for harmony, for the almost like the sustainability of it, right? Because I think all of us, when we're in business as a business leader, we go into business to create and make a difference in the world. And then too often, as you and I have talked about, you get so consumed in it, you become the bottleneck, you don't have any harmony in your life because you're spending all the time in the business rather than on the business. The business can't grow and scale because everything's coming through you, and you don't have that harmony in your life. I really love that you're looking at that as well, because it's such a holistic picture. And everything we talk is all about harmony and the interconnectedness and interdependence and how everything relates together from the principles of nature. Sorry, you were just saying.
And that harmony, Julia, and I just want to give this as a very small example. A lot of business owners go into this and think, I don't need harmony yet. I'll get to that stage where I'm ready to exit or ready to that. Now, I worked with a couple not so long ago who said to me, they said, can you get us ready for exit? And we laid out the path that we were talking about just then in order to get them to that stage. Now, they were planning that part of their test of getting the harmony was they wanted to go and visit some family in Canada for 3 months. And they said, what we'll do is we'll test whether or not we've got harmony in the business by going away to Canada for 3 months. And we were looking at 9 months' time. Within a few weeks of getting this plan in place, a family emergency cropped up, and they basically needed to take 3 weeks off unexpectedly. One of them said to me, I don't even know if this business will be here in 4 weeks when I get back, because we're at the middle of it. And if we're not here, it'll all fall apart. Now, when they came back 4 weeks later, after an unexpected emergency, the business was there. And I said, this proves that you should get that harmony in place from day one, because you never know when that family emergency is going to crop up. It's so important to be thinking about, how do I get to the stage where I am not the bottleneck immediately, because you never know when the crisis is going to happen in your life. So we leave these things trusting that everything will be okay. 99% of the time, thankfully, it is. But those 1% where it really matters, it's so critical that you actually start the process of being not the bottleneck, so that you never end up being unable to just take 3 weeks off because you need a medical emergency.
Yeah. And it is. And when, like you said, how great that company was working with you, and you'd already started to put those processes in place, because otherwise all their life's work could have disappeared. In 4 weeks. 4 weeks, or they would be trying to multitask and look after a family emergency and run the business at the same time, and you would have run into the same challenges. So
absolutely.
Wow. And isn't it? There's so much in life, I think, where we think about, oh, we'll do that in the future, or when I'm ready, I'll do that, or
When I'm 65, I'll retire. I don't need to do it. And I had a phone call from somebody the other day who's just rung me up and said, we collaborate. And he said, I've just had this scan. And you can bet what he then said. He said, they've given me 5 years. And he said, the trouble is, I don't think I'm quite ready to exit the business. I've got to get things. And Ian, why have you not taken the action to bring harmony in your life now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, wow. Okay. God, there's so much we could talk about here. But
yes, let's get back to tea for team, because otherwise we'll be here all day.
I know, I can absolutely tell that. Yeah. So share with us a little bit then about the process of teams. You've got these 4 pillars of excellent management. Okay. Perhaps you could share with the listeners a bit more about that.
So these were the things that effectively, as I said, I had 600 people through a whole cascade of management teams. And I thought, I need to have all these people behaving in ways that I want. So I started with the first pillar, which I started giving feedback. Rather than waiting for that feedback once every year at the sort of annual review, I started doing feedback on a daily basis. It would be something along the lines of, and let me just try and role play this one, Julia. I'm sorry if I'm going to pick on you on this one, but Julia,
that's fine.
Hey, Julia, can I give you some feedback?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Look, when you came into that meeting and really took control of things, it helped us enormously. Thank you for doing that.
Now, wow. Okay, I didn't realize. Yeah, great.
Now you can imagine, can't you? When I started doing this to people, their immediate response was, as you were then, what's he about to say? Is he about to give me some bad news? And for about 3 weeks, I started this and they were going, oh, great. Every time he says, can I give some feedback? It's going to be really great. And they started to take on board the behaviors I was looking for. And so after this was a bit calculated. I appreciate that. After about 3 weeks of doing this, I would go, hey, Julia, can I give you some feedback? And the immediate response was, yes, please. Yeah. When you came into that meeting late, it disturbed the flow. Can you do something different about that?
Ooh.
And so people would then do exactly what you did, which is, oh, I never expected him to criticize me, but okay.
Yeah.
He tells me when I'm doing well, but he occasionally tells me when I'm not. And he's just asking me to make a change. Yeah, okay, boss, I'll be there earlier next time. Terrific. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that. And that was it. So I would be doing these feedbacks, what I would call behavior adjusting and behavior enforcing feedback 20, 30 times a day to people. It would be going on all the time. Literally within 20 seconds of something happening, I'd just say, hey, can I give you some feedback? And they all just got used to this. And effectively, the behaviors that I wanted to encourage, which were teamwork, which were collaborative, which were people thinking about other people, all started to improve. And I thought, oh, this is terrific. But it was the second stage which actually really made the difference, because I eventually said to somebody, I need something to happen quickly. And they looked at me. And what happened in the back of my head was, oh my goodness, there's something, they've said something and I'd forgotten what it is. And I thought, I need to know these people better, because I realize now that I've just affected something in their personal life. And I need to be able to explain to them, and I understand that I'm doing that. So I started having every 2 weeks, a one-on-one meeting with the person that directly reported to me. And then I told my managers they had to do the same thing with their people. So it started to cascade down the organization. And the one-on-one meeting was only 30 minutes. It was once every 2 weeks, and it had literally 3 sections in it. And the first 10 minutes were for them to tell me anything they wanted. So they might want to come in and say, I've got a family emergency, and I would just sit and listen and see what I could do to help. The second 10 minutes were for me to pass on information that I needed them to do. So it might be, look, we need you to step up in this area, or I need you to take this on, or I need you to collaborate better on this area. And the third 10 minutes, and this is the interesting one that I felt, was, where are you at the moment thinking that we need to develop your skills further for the next step in your career? And I would effectively, and this was the fourth pillar that we're just coming to here. So the first pillar was all about feedback. This second pillar is all about one-to-one meetings. And the third pillar was about coaching them. So I then would say, well, okay, so where do you, and then I might say, look, you keep saying that, you know, those meeting skills, I'm not getting it right. I need better meeting skills. Terrific. Let's think about how we can get you better meeting skills. Go away, spend 10 minutes looking at books, courses, YouTube videos, and just send me a summary of what actions you're going to take in order to improve your meeting skills. And that would be the 10 minutes of the meeting. I wasn't coaching them. I wasn't doing the work. I was identifying resources that enabled them to improve their skills, and I would support it. So that once every 2 weeks, we began to see skills begin to develop. People would gain technical skills, they gain managerial skills, they get skills all over the place, which led me to the fourth pillar of this management of the team. And that was my ability then, once they had behavior that was appropriate for what we needed, once they had skills, which I knew that they wanted to use, I'd start to delegate. I would start to delegate things which I knew I didn't have time to do and were a bottleneck to people that then had the skills to do it. So I could now turn around and say, Julia, you over the last 6 weeks have been improving your management skills. You can run the weekly so-and-so meeting. I will attend it. And then eventually I might not even bother to attend it. But your job is to do it. And I would delegate through a process, through a very structured process, how they were intended to start running something which was truly my responsibility. Now, I still remained responsible for it, but they now became accountable. So I would delegate to them. Now, that part of the team management structure allowed me to give them more and more responsibility and gave them the opportunity to go off and do it, still with my feedback, so they still remained within the behaviors that we wanted from the organization. But I now suddenly found myself with, hey, I've got time on my hands. This is wonderful. I have now given half of my job away, 10, 20% of my 30, 50, 70% of my job away. What can I do? I'm going to go and start a new collaboration with another company. We'll see if we can grow this company. So I was slowly delegating out more and more. Now, I discovered that delegation was one of the things that if you go and talk to any serious top executive, they learn delegation very quickly. What I'd done is discovered it, but I put a process again about how to delegate so well together that I knew that when I delegated something, they would remain within the guardrails that I set, but also I effectively given so much behavior feedback that they would do it in the way that I would do it. And it enabled us all to develop and grow the company. Effectively, that company grew and we sold it to an American organization, largely without me even being involved. I almost used to turn up on a Wednesday afternoon and check that there's still a business to run.
And it's what I love about this. So everyone, the 4 steps were feedback, one-on-ones, coaching, and then delegation. And what I love about this is it's so simple, but yet we so forget about it.
Oh, don't.
And in my experience in the corporate world and everything is we're notorious about not giving feedback. Like you alluded to that, your annual review is the only time you get feedback. Ridiculous. The world's way too dynamic. You could imagine nowadays, right? You sit in the annual review and what you want to talk to somebody about what they did last year. And that thing they don't even do anymore because technology's moved on. Everything's changed. And I think that, and I love that you started with the positive feedback because, yeah, just as I was role playing there, I think when we say the word feedback, people are always on their back foot, often thinking it's some kind of criticism or something that they need to do better. But I think there's so much value in that really appreciation of what team members do.
Yes.
And how they really contribute. And that is such a big motivator. And it's so simple for any leader to do. And yet rarely done.
So rarely done.
In my experience, certainly, that people never, rarely say, oh, that was a great job. And just this off the cuff comments.
Julia, can I just reinforce that? Please. I trained this 4-step process out to all of my managers and had basically said to them, you need to manage in the way I do. I want you to do all these 4 things. I want you to do them the way I do them, blah, blah, blah. And I discovered they made a few changes. So for instance, one of them would not use the word feedback. But he would go up to people and say, can I tell you something? Or can I share something with you? It was the same thing, but he was using words that he felt more comfortable with. So he would go to people and say, can I share something with you?
Yeah.
What you did was great. But he'd also say, when you did, that's not helpful. I don't want you to do that again. And he would say it I want to share something with you. It's a lovely way of putting it. I loved it. It's not something that I wanted to say, but it was a brilliant way of putting exactly the same emotion across.
Yeah. And I think therefore when, and I love what you're talking there as well about the beginning about the getting to know all your team members. And we were just talking off air before we came in about knowing that their family, their wife, their spouse's name, their kid's name, what they're doing. Because I think that's about building relationships, right?
Cheers.
And being able to have that empathy and compassion for people to know that maybe we need them to go a bit of the extra mile and stay late one night. And we know it's going to have an impact on something that they already usually do, their dance class on a Thursday night or something. And I think that can give us that empathy and compassion as a leader. And people realize that we understand the impact that this action we require them to do is having on their lives. Because I always share a story, Stuart, when, once I'd left corporate and I did my NLP, neuro linguistic programming training. And I remember the coach saying to me, not everyone sees the world the same way you do, Julia.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? And it explains so much, right? It explains so much about what had been going on in business. And I was like, what do you mean? It's not all the same. And that was mind blowing. I was like, how do I get through a 20-year corporate career not realizing that everyone has a different reality? But in those days, we weren't so much into personal development and understanding some of these things that we are now. And I think it's such a blessing that as a leader, we have a responsibility, right, to get into our team members' shoes and see things through their perspective so that we can get this holistic view of what's happening in the business.
And that's one of the reasons why when we talked about the process that I put in place for that sort of every 2 weeks, a one-on-one meeting, the first 10 minutes of that meeting is all about them. I want them to explain how they're seeing the world to me. I would say to them, I opened up that meeting every time with exactly the same words, which is what's going on. And they took that as a clue to talk about work. But eventually some of them started to realize they wanted to say something along the lines of, I'm sorry, my performance is down at the moment. I'm going through a divorce. And we'd spend 10 minutes just sympathizing and understanding how the divorce was affecting them. Obviously, it was affecting them at work, but it was affecting their personal life. Now, there were occasions when I go, you need some time off, don't you? And that was just something we had to, thankfully, we had a team that was highly collaborative, and also half of their work would be delegated out to somebody else because they'd learned how to delegate. So as a result, they could take the time off. Sometimes you just need to sit there and recognize that you need to sit and listen for 10 minutes to somebody, even if you're thinking to yourself all the time they're doing it, I've got work to do, I've got work to do. Those 10 minutes are the most valuable 10 minutes they're possibly going to get in their work week.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you say that about the 10 minutes because I was just running a leadership workshop yesterday and we were doing that. I actually delivered some of my interventions with horses and we actually had some executives out and we actually we have some question cards and they had 10 minutes at the end just to reflect on the whole day. And they're like, wow, I got so much done in 10 minutes. It was like a structured co-coaching session that they were having. And they're like, so much can be achieved in 10 minutes. And yet we always say we're too busy. We don't have time for it. And yet when we slow down and we spend time and we invest in relationships and learning about people and we invest in time to self-reflect, actually, we accelerate the results in the longer term.
Yeah. Yeah. And you would be amazed that element of the one-to-one meeting were so key to people beginning to feel valued. The other effect, Julia, which we measured, because I had an HR professional come back to me and say, do you realize what the turnover is? Now, we were losing nobody because suddenly we had a bunch of people who were valued. Now, that didn't mean that we didn't think to ourselves there are people that needed to move on and we would have those conversations. But the fact of the matter is managers were not losing people. And it wasn't due to the fact that we were giving huge pay rises.
No, and there was some research actually I just recently saw, and it's not new to me, but we often think about, we need to keep people, we'll throw money at them. And I know from my own experience, that's never the case. For me, I want to work in an environment where I'm valued, I can make a contribution. And yeah, you've got to have enough money to live on. But after that, it's more for me about the experience, the people I work with than a financial reward. And being able to keep your people is, we know from a company's perspective, you get better productivity or these people are way more engaged. So that translates into more profitability for the business and a lot less wasted time and energy recruiting all these people And I think we always forget because we think about, oh, it's just the time recruiting them, but then it's all the time them getting up to speed and
Yeah.
being able to delegate to everyone else. There's all
Yeah.
those lost costs in business.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, wow, there's so many ways we could go with this. I'm also conscious we've been talking for quite a long time already. What would be the best tip you could give to our listeners about how they could improve teamwork within their organization? Obviously, you shared with us your four-step process there. What's something that you've seen that other things that you've seen that's worked really well, or a situation you've been in which has totally transformed the way a team has worked together?
Yeah, so I think I'd go back to that feedback, Julia, because so many
Mm,
managers are uncomfortable with feedback. The point of feedback is not just in order to correct somebody's behavior, and it's certainly not to sit and boil and say, oh, I wish they'd stop doing that, and I'll wait till the annual
mhm,
review and I'll bring it up. Look, people want to know they're doing the right thing. And occasionally
mhm.
they don't even realize they're doing something which is detrimental, because we have got an inability to see into our own behavior from as if we were outside it. You'll know this
Yeah.
from NLP. I absolutely always encourage people. I know how difficult this is, but start with sharing. I want to share something with
Yeah.
you. When you did that was absolutely lovely. And if you do, and encourage people to do the right thing. And then after a while, you say, I know I normally tell you something wonderful, but I just want you to adjust this. I just want this differently. If you could just look
Mm.
at that for me, you're not asking for an immediate change. You're just nudging it like if you think of a big super tanker, you can't turn a super tanker on
No.
a 6 months. You have to nudge it and move it very quick, very slowly. Just use these techniques to just subtly adjust performance over a period. One of the things, and I think we talked about my scientific career, one of the things that I misunderstood about managing people was I believed some of the stuff I'd seen in films when I started in my managerial career. Every film is about volcanic activity and change. And if you see a business film, it's all about the sort of the chaos and how they heroically come through it. When you get into managing people, the chaos is actually the worst thing that you can have. But
Mm.
the slow, gentle encouragement is like two massive tectonic plates coming together. Now, if you look at mountains around the world, the huge mountains like the Himalayas, etc., were built by two slow-moving tectonic plates crunching into each other at 2 centimeters per year, but they built an enormous Great Big Mountain range. Think of yourself as a slow-moving tectonic plate. You want to move some behavior? Think of moving that behavior one tiny adjustment at a time, and over the course of 6 months, you will see that behavior change. So my encouragement to people is, if you want to start seeing behavior change in people, if you want to see change in people, don't try to do it in one day, because that leads to the chaos and the volcanic eruption. Do it like a tectonic plate, small, tiny adjustments. The other thing about doing it slowly, you can actually watch to see what the effect is. You're having to work with what's going on in the marketplace. And if what's going on in the marketplace is there is something going on and you're thinking, I don't know where that's going at the moment, I've got to monitor it for a while. If you've turned straight into what the market is about to suddenly push you off course, you have got time. So don't try and make massive changes. Don't try and change people's behaviors overnight. Work with them slowly to get them to see how their behavior isn't gelling with the rest of the team. Now, you will come across some people who are just deliberately going to want to not gel with the team. Those are people we have to, unfortunately, have a sit down conversation and say, we don't think we're right for each other. But that's another story.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a big story that we could do another episode on, right?
Yeah.
About how
We
to
could be
deal
here
with
for
that.
a very long time talking about that.
I know. But I love that. It is always the concept of slow and steady wins the race, right?
Yeah.
The old hare and the tortoise. But I think one of the challenges I think we all face as leaders and even as team members is we want everything now. We've become such an instant gratification society. We want the
Yeah.
promotion now. We want the whatever it is. And to actually realize that those small 1% changes actually have a massive impact, the compound effect over time, if we just persist in them and don't go, I need to change everything tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just like the process you had with that, with those two people to complete for exit, you put in all these small steps And it didn't actually take that long. You said they had to go away after sort of 4 weeks for a family emergency. Even in 4 weeks, one small change each day had already created an environment which enabled that to happen for them. So it's incredible.
Yeah, and what we've done is we this is where we come back to these things done earlier rather than leaving them late. It enables you in order to be able to get the culture of the organization. It enables you to get the teamwork in the organization. If somebody comes into the team and the first thing they get is some feedback to say that was a great thing you did, they immediately go, hey, this was a great team to join. If 2 weeks later they get, oh, by the way, if you could change that, they'll go, yeah, why not? I'm doing a lot of good things anyway, so why not?
Yeah. So fabulous. All right, Stuart, how can people get in contact with you? What's the best way? Because you've shared some real gems here, and I'm sure people would love to stay connected with you.
So I think there are two ways, Julia, that I'm going to give you. The two ways I'm going to suggest. I'm on LinkedIn. Everybody's on LinkedIn, aren't they? But if you go and find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Stuart Webb. That's StuartWebb, Stuart Webb. And the other way is if you go to my website, which is www.the-complete-approach.com. That's the-complete-approach.com. That will direct you to the website and all the resources there are there.
Excellent. We'll put all of those in the show notes for everyone. Thank you so much for your time, everyone, there today. Thank you, Stuart, for sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciated that. And until next week, everyone, we will catch you then. Okay.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Julia. Really appreciated it.